Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of Virtual Investor Conferences, we're very pleased you have joined us for our AI and Technology Conference. Our next presentation is from DigiXX. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for a one-on-one meeting by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Edward Carr of DigiXX, which trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol DGXX and on the TSXV under the symbol DGX. Welcome, Edward.
Thanks. Thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here today at your AI technology conference and have a chance to tell everyone about the DigiXX story. This is a real exciting time in the history and the evolution of DigiXX. So we really appreciate everyone's attention and tuning in to watch this presentation. As Greg mentioned, you can see right here on your screens that we do trade on both the NASDAQ and up in Canada. We are a Canadian corporation. We're first listed up there. DGX in Canada is the symbol, DGXX on the NASDAQ. So during my presentation today, I'm certainly going to be making a lot of forward-looking statements. I would draw your attention to this slide. So what are we? At DigiXX, just to give a little overview of the company, we're an energy infrastructure company. And we believe we've got a really nice portfolio of assets that positions us perfectly, both as a technology company and to take advantage of this new trend towards artificial intelligence, high performance computing, tier 3 data centers. So we effectively have several Bitcoin mining operations. And in addition, we own our own power plant. That power plant is a combined cycle power plant. I'll talk more about that. Really valuable asset for the company. And we specialize in acquiring, building, and managing infrastructure, both for tier 1 and tier 3 high performance computer data centers. Just taking a little quick look at this slide, this box on the top right. Looking at kind of our market capitalization share structure. I noticed this morning, last I looked, the share price on DigiPower was around $2.47 USD on the NASDAQ. So you see our issued and outstanding shares there, just over 36.3 million, gives us about a $90 million market cap in real time today. Importantly to point out, look at that cash and cash equivalents, have about $13.5 million in cash and cash equivalents. Those cash equivalents are Bitcoin that we hold long on the balance sheet as we mine those. And if you look at our press release we put out early July talking about our production in the end of throughout the end of June, you can see we're at 13.5 million. No long-term debt in the company. So that's really important. This company's been run quite conservatively over the years. Our CEO is a gentleman named Michel Amar. He is the founder of DigiXX. Michel has run this company almost like his own family office over the years because he has a lot of his own personal money in the company. And you can see that insider ownership, 20% of the company. I believe Michel has approximately $8 million of his own money. I don't think he's ever sold a share in the history of DigiXX. So he really believes in the company. And he has built this company conservatively through raising equity at attractive levels, building out infrastructure, acquiring valuable assets that he can pick up at a discount. And he, being a major stockholder, he doesn't like dilution like any shareholder should. So if you look out there in the industry today, a lot of these cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin miners, they go out and they take on tremendous amounts of debt. They all have ATMs in place where they're constantly diluting their shareholders because they're raising capital to put back into new computers to mine Bitcoin. And they produce a lot of Bitcoin, our big competitors, but they also have a lot of debt. This can work out really well. Bitcoin's been rallying, so we're at about 112,000 we hit this morning. That's an all-time high. If anyone's watching out there on Bitcoin, I mean, all of us in the industry are bullish, but this is a volatile asset. And when Bitcoin turns over and comes down, which it has many times, those companies that have a lot of debt, they can really turn down precipitously as well. And I think that DigiPower is in a nice position for that. So just going on to the next slide, Looking at the history of the company, that I mentioned, the company is a Canadian company, originally set up a couple operations in the northern New York area around Niagara Falls, was looking there in the early days. The company was called Digi back then and was looking for some cheap electricity, hydropower, clean, green, cheap electricity coming off Niagara Falls, really built the first foundation of a couple of Bitcoin farms set up. The company went public up in Canada on the TSX Venture around 2021. 2021 to 2022, the price of Bitcoin had a really, really big rally, and all of these publicly traded Bitcoin mining stocks rallied very nicely as well. During that time period, Michel Amar was very fortuitous. The price of Digi host stock up in Canada went from an initial listing of around $4 Canadian a share up to 15. So he used that appreciation to raise a bunch of capital, about $80 million. And he put that money to work into infrastructure. So he acquired in September 2022 our power plant, which is located just outside of Buffalo, New York. So he got a real good deal on that asset. If you remember 2022, that was like the depths of COVID. So a lot of these assets had gotten good value, and also built out a bunch of other operations that we have. Fast forward on this slide all the way to today, to where we are. We are currently in the position with DigiPower X right now. We are transitioning a couple of our sites from Bitcoin miners, what we call tier 1 facilities, to high performance computing AI tier 3 data centers. So it's a real exciting time in the industry, and I'm going to talk a lot more about that. Our core business strategy today, 3 different things. We drive consistent revenues through our utility assets. I mentioned we own our own power plant. I'll talk a lot more about it. We also have a bunch of Bitcoin mining operations. A lot of those are co-location. So we partner up with major, bigger firms, and we provide the energy. We manage the whole operation. And then we're using all of our operational know-how. Again, our team knows how to run federally regulated power plants. So we've got a real deep bench of operators, and they've got a lot of know-how in operations, construction, to help us convert a couple of our facilities to tier 3 data centers. So that's kind of what we're all about. When you look at this AI, artificial intelligence, data centers, high performance computing, I tell you, not a day goes by, probably not an hour goes by where I don't see a headline from the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, the Financial Times talking about new data center projects. This industry is booming, as everyone knows. And the current administration, the Trump administration, President Trump and his sons are probably the most favorable administration the United States has ever had towards crypto, towards artificial intelligence. President Trump wants to really onshore a lot of manufacturing back into the United States, make America great again, and data centers are a big part of that. He was in the Middle East a couple of months ago, talking to some of the Gulf sovereign wealth funds, striking big deals to bring capital back into the United States. They announced a massive project called Stargate, where Oracle, SoftBank, OpenAI are some of the core investors in that. So massive data centers are springing up, all around the United States. And this has become a big land rush that's happening right now. This trend is forecasted to continue to grow, continue to boom. We're probably in the early days, and there's a lot of smart analysts out there that say this boom in artificial intelligence could be bigger than the whole internet or mobile phones. So we just have to watch and see. When we look at Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin, as I mentioned, $112,000 it touched today. That's an all-time high. Again, this is probably the most friendly administration in Washington, D.C. that we've ever had towards digital assets, Bitcoin, all of the cryptocurrencies, very, very friendly. We're starting to see this real merger now between TradFi and DeFi. A lot of things coming together. The Circle IPO with their stablecoin, huge success. I think we're going to see a lot more of this going forward. Bitcoin, we're very bullish on the price. All of us in the industry, we think it's going to continue to do very, very well in the future. And mining co-location, that's a big part of our story. We really believe in this. It's CapEx light for us. We can partner up with some of the bigger companies out there, bring their machines onto our facilities. I'll talk specifically about that in our power plant. And this trend is really growing and continues to grow in the future. When you look at the company today, DigiXX, we're pretty unknown. And that's why we're here at this conference trying to get the word out. I think we only have one research analyst that follows the company today. There's a couple others that are sniffing around, and you might see more coverage in the future. But we're pretty unknown, a $90 million market cap company. A lot of our competitors, you look at this chart, they're multi-billion-dollar market cap companies when you look at the Maras and the Riots of this industry. So we're just trying to get the word out there. And what we're trying to convey by this chart is we believe, quite undervalued. And the reason we're undervalued, there's a couple different ways you can look at this industry. What's your enterprise value compared to your exahash? Or I just like a very easy metric myself. What's your enterprise value compared to how many megawatts of Bitcoin you're currently mining? And if you look down on the bottom right there, currently today at DigiPower, we've got about 100 megawatts of energized facilities, mining Bitcoin, self-mining, and co-location. And our market cap today, as I mentioned, is about $90 million in real time. So that's about 90 cents per megawatt. And this little universe of comparisons up above us, they're trading at about $5.64 today. So when you look at that, we're about 6 times, 7 times undervalued just on an apples to apples basis. If we could just bubble up to that relative market cap, you could be looking at 5 times appreciation on our market capitalization. And we think we're going to get there. Today, our power portfolio distribution, the majority of our power is used in co-location. Then we've got some self-mining, and we also have utility power sales. So we actually sell power from our power plant we own. Look at where we're going on this bigger pie chart on the right. We are going to start moving towards, obviously, co-location, a real big part of our story, but then we're getting into these tier 3 location revenues. These are the AI data centers. We are retrofitting one of our sites right now that we're really excited about. So let's talk kind of on this slide about the real operational footprint of DigiPowerX. This is our core, our 3 different producing assets today and a development property all the way over on the right. Going to start in Alabama, the left-hand side of the slide. So our Columbia and Alabama operation, nice operation. We're currently at 22 megawatts energized at our Bitcoin mining operation there. It's both tier 1, it's co-location and a couple self-mining machines. Importantly, in Alabama, we are rated for 55 megawatts. So we've got an additional 33 megawatts of capacity that we can still bring online. And fantastic location, great facility. In our center column, North Tonawanda, this is our power plant. So currently it is producing at 60 megawatts. We are co-location there. We also sell power back to the grid and get capacity payments. I'll talk more about that. Fantastic asset, really our core flagship asset right now in DigiPowerX. Third column, Buffalo, New York. We have a former industrial site that is getting power from Niagara Falls. So it's hydroelectric, it's clean, it's green. We're co-location and self-mining there. And on the far right, we have a very valuable piece of property. This is a development project. It is in North Carolina. And the reason it's valuable, there's no infrastructure on it yet on our ground, but we are literally right next door to a Duke substation. Duke is the big utility. The substation has the transformers, high voltage to low voltage, the substation's right there. I mean, a lot of infrastructure. And we have a load study approved for this project for 200 megawatts of power. So that's a pretty nice power allocation. In addition, our neighbor right next door is a brand new state-of-the-art tier 3 AI data center, 200 megawatt data center owned by Google. So that is a big facility. Google's demand for data centers and tier 3 is insatiable. So they might want to come over one day, knock on our door and say, hey, little DigiPowerX, would you be willing to sell us that piece of land? And if we were, Michelle probably could get us a very nice value for that. So we think it's very valuable. Let's talk a little more about the assets here that we have. Going to start on our flagship, North Tonawanda. So this is our power plant. And our power plant is located just outside of Buffalo, New York. In fact, if I wanted to take you on a site visit, you could fly into Buffalo, we could pick you up there, and in about 10 minutes later, if you look at this photograph of the facility, you'd be driving down that main road, you'll hook a left up our driveway, you can see those Christmas trees right on our front lawn there. As you drive up our driveway past those Christmas trees, you would drive past these containers. And those containers are our Bitcoin mining operations. We are currently co-locating and generating and producing Bitcoin on the facility. This power plant today, it's a natural gas steam generated turbine power plant. It is rated today for 60 megawatts, but we've been undergoing a load study here to increase the output to 120 megawatts. This is really important. And being located in New York is what I call kind of a regulatory heavy state. Takes time to get through these load studies. We've been working on this for about 18 months in conjunction with attorneys, our local consultants, electrical engineers, town hall meetings, everything like that. And we think we're very, very close to getting this load study approved. So as soon as this load study is approved, we will be able to double our Bitcoin mining capacity. It's going to be a major, major catalyst for the company, we believe, in the second half of this year. So continue to watch the press releases on that. So the power plant itself, fantastic asset. I mentioned before that Michel Amar had bought this asset back in September of 2022, kind of at the depths of COVID, distressed asset sale, got a great deal on it. But importantly, this power plant was built in 1992, so been around more than 30 years. And the operational team, we have over 30 employees at this power plant, extremely experienced team. We're very proud of them, from plant managers to electrical engineers, systems managers, et cetera. And these guys have been, a lot of them, about half our team have been working here since the power plant was built. So over 30 years of experience. And this is a federally regulated FERC and PSC approved power plant. So how it works with these, what we call behind the meter generation power plants, is this power plant can produce electricity up to 60 megawatts by burning natural gas. And you see down below, our cost of electricity is around 4 cents per kilowatt. So that's quite competitive and works out very, very well for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin mining is hugely dependent upon a low price of electricity. So here we're competitive. But the power plant makes other revenues as well. Number one, we get capacity payments. Just having the ability to produce electricity, the New York grid actually pays DigiXX around $3 to $5 million a year in payments just to be on standby. And then what happens is, if there's different times in the year where the grid gets really stressed, and think about it, that can happen usually 2 times a year in Buffalo, New York. Winter, this happened in February, a big Arctic cold air high pressure system, descends in from Canada. It goes to 20 degrees below zero in Buffalo, New York. And what happens? Everyone gets cold. They all turn up the heat. Huge demand on the grid for electricity. And at that point, the grid can call on DigiXX to actually sell power back to the grid. So what's nice is when that happens, usually spot electricity prices spike. So we are generating power at 4 cents, maybe spot prices spike to 11 or 12 cents. So you're making a pretty nice margin when you're selling this power back to the grid. And then by March, it might warm up, the grid gets back to normal, and we can then use the electricity for the Bitcoin mining operations. The Bitcoin mining, those containers on the front lawn, they're really nice too, because you can literally turn them on and off like a light switch. Once they're energized and they have electricity, they're obviously, the computers are running, it's loud, they are producing Bitcoin on a daily basis. And if you have to shut them down, they're just not producing any Bitcoin, but we're getting the revenue from the grid. The other time of year that this tends to happen can be August. August, you get one of those Mississippi or Floridian, hot, humid systems, low pressure that comes up over Buffalo, becomes 100 degrees and humid. Everyone cranks the air conditioner. So those are the 2 times a year where the grid tends to be a little stressed. We can sell power back to the grid, and it's a real nice, fantastic asset. In addition, this is a wonderful location for a future tier 3 data center. And the reason is tier 3 data centers need 24/7 power. You need 24/7 power and you need 24/7 backup. Well, here at our power plant, we produce power and we have a direct grid connection. So we could also pull down power. So if you see in this picture again, you're driving up our driveway, you see this land on the right that is just undeveloped forest. Digi Power owns about 14 acres there. So we've got enough land that we could potentially in the future build a tier 3 data center. And this will be an absolute wonderful location for it. In addition, we have announced, if you look at our press releases, we're pretty excited about this. So we've got a strategic collaboration with Nano Nuclear Energy. Nano Nuclear, they trade on the NASDAQ. Their symbol is NNE. They've been a pretty hot stock, the whole sector, the small nuclear, small modular reactors, micro reactors, has been a pretty hot sector. And the whole world knows that we need more electricity, not just in the United States, but around the world. The grids are pretty stressed. People don't want to construct more coal-fired power plants because of the environmental hazards. So nuclear, it's clean, it's green. The technology is way beyond, those old legacy massive reactors that we still have around. And these small modular reactors are definitely going to be the future. So DigiPowerX has announced a partnership with Nano Nuclear. It's super exciting. We put out a press release on this December of last year. You can go back and read that. So we, in conjunction with Nano Nuclear, we're doing a feasibility level study on looking at the potential of deploying one of their small modular reactors, one of their SMRs, to power our data centers in the future. Again, small modular reactors, they're still a couple years away from commercialization, but if the technology proves viable, it could be zero carbon emission, very cheap energy, 24/7 baseload energy. Fantastic for the whole data center trend. We're going to publish these results when they're finished. We've also got that memorandum of understanding with them is we can expand to more data centers, expand the technology. So this collaboration, it's really, really exciting for both companies, and we plan to build on this tremendously in the future. When you look at tier 3 data centers, and just to give you a little idea, okay, we hear a lot about them, but what if we wanted to go out today and just build our own tier 3 data center? Well, you certainly can, and it takes a considerable amount of time, planning, energy, and effort. First thing you got to do when you're looking at a tier 3 data center is find the land. And I don't think today you probably want to go to Northern Virginia because it's all crowded. There's tons of data centers there, a big data center cluster, but you got to find the land. And it should be close to a metropolitan area. You don't want it on a floodplain. We see what just happened in Texas or New Mexico with these flash floods. You don't want to be in an earthquake zone. You don't want to be in Tornado Alley. So it becomes important. Where are we going to position this valuable asset? You want to have security. You want to have access to the fiber network, a lot of things. Then you got to get the regulatory approval. That really depends state by state. A state like California, New York, Massachusetts can take longer. Some of the southern states, or a state like maybe Alabama or Wyoming, they might be faster. So you got to go through your load study. Then you got to look at building out the actual infrastructure. So there is so much demand right now for tier 3 data centers that the supply chain for this industry is as dry as the Sahara Desert. I mean, if you went out right now and you called any of the big manufacturers and you said, okay, we need 5 transformers, pick up the phone. I challenge you. Call Siemens, call ABB. Yeah, I'd like to order 5 transformers. They'll say, okay, fantastic. They'll definitely take your order, but they'll deliver them in 2027 because they're all sold out. Well, we actually have all the equipment at DigiPowerX. We have extra transformers. We've got extra cable. We've got extra generators. Why? All comes through our power plant, North Tonawanda. Plus, we have the operational expertise. Finally, for your tier 3 data center, you got to find the customer. We've been hearing about the Mag 7. They're kind of hoovering up any availability in the tier 3 data center space recently. Okay, Meta's doing this deal, Amazon's doing that deal, Google is doing this one, and Oracle, whoever it is, the big tech companies seem to be at the leading edge, but a lot of other companies want to get in on the game as well because of these productivity, efficiencies that AI can bring. So the customer becomes really important. Small companies like Digi Power, there's been a lot of other cryptocurrency mining companies that have been trying to convert their operations into tier 3 data centers, and they tend to get a massive valuation re-rate once they announce a credible customer. So I'll talk more about that here for a second. So look, on our tier 3 expansion, we are going to start with our facility in Alabama. Alabama is a fantastic state. They're open for business, very easy. It's kind of regulatory light. And they're like, fantastic, let's go. So our facility in Alabama right now, you can see a picture of it on this slide, 22 megawatt Bitcoin mining operation. We're approved for 55 megawatts of power. So we are going to build a tier 3 data center here. We've already announced a new subsidiary called US Data Centers. So we're doing all this in a brand new subsidiary. Hopefully in the future, we can spin that out, take it public on its own for the benefit of all the Digi Power shareholders. And this is really exciting. We are going to start incrementally. So we'll start with 5 megawatts that we anticipate having done pretty quickly. We've already been through a full feasibility level engineering study, shows us all the costs, all the time, to build this facility. And when you're building a tier 3 data center, the build itself, the building, it's pretty easy. Concrete slab, steel girder construction, sheet metal walls. So it looks like a Costco distribution center. The real value comes inside the facility. And inside that facility, that's where you get the chips, that's where you get the racks, the processors, these new NVIDIA state-of-the-art processors. And we're so excited because US Data Centers, US Data Centers, our subsidiary of DigiPowerX, we have announced a strategic collaboration with Supermicro. Supermicro is developing these new modular tier 3 data center facilities for us. They're called ARMS, which is an AI-ready modular solution. This is going to allow us to scale up very, very quickly because we can start with a little as half a megawatt, then a megawatt, and it's almost think of like the Legos, like a plug-and-play solution or like a modular home. We can build up depending on demand. For a little small company like DigiPowerX, this becomes important because we don't need to come in with billions of dollars of capital right away. We're not going to go out and dilute our shareholders way down. We're going to start small. We're going to build up with demand. We are in the process right now of designing and building out our Alabama tier 3 data center. We also believe that we are going to be able to announce a tenant very, very shortly, probably in the second half of this year. So that's, again, another major catalyst for the company. Keep watching that. So milestones that we're looking at, again, the updated load study from our North Tonawanda power plant, increasing that from 60 megawatts to 120 megawatts. That'll be significant. We'll produce more revenues, produce more Bitcoin. And then these advances on our tier 3 data center in Alabama, certainly leading to a tenant. Those become the big ones. And why are we doing this? Well, there's a massive valuation disconnect in the market between Bitcoin miners that trade around 5.6 times enterprise value to EBITDA to high performance computing companies that trade almost 22 times. So if we're successful in doing this, we think we can have a massive valuation re-rate in the company. When you look at where we are today, we got about 100 megawatts. You can see how they play out amongst our existing 3 facilities. Where we're going in the next 24 months, we think we'll be at 220 megawatts. In Alabama, going up to 55, that load study's approved. North Tonawanda power plant going from 60, doubling to 120, bringing on 20 megawatts in North Carolina. So there's a lot on our plate, but very, very ambitious plan. We think it'll generate a tremendous amount of value. If we can do it, and if we're successful in pivoting Alabama to a tier 3 data center, announcing the tenant, here's how the valuations might potentially look. We could have potentially 198 megawatts of Bitcoin mining, tier 1, 22 megawatts of tier 3 high performance computing. We could potentially be looking at a $374, $375 million market cap. That's significantly higher than our $90 million market cap today. And that is the opportunity for us. So you can see how our revenues break down. Really importantly, look here, we get kind of revenues through crypto mining, self-mining, energy sales, and co-location. That was last year. No debt, $13.5 million cash and crypto equivalent position. So company's in really good financial shape. We got a really good team. I talked about Michel, his son Alec is our president. Really good board, experienced operational team. And it's been a super pleasure to be here at the AI Technology Conference. Hope this gave you a little bit of an overview towards DigiPowerX. If you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to follow up with anyone, and love to talk to investors and potential investors anytime. So really appreciate the hosts, and thanks so much for having us here today.